I was so young when I was doing it, and you'd get some real strange people that were into that, you know?
Such as? Baby, you don't have to tell her.
Oh, okay.
A hit sitcom nearly killed by its own network, saved by 50,000 letters. A Republican actress delivering fiery liberal speeches in exchange for getting to sing. Real-life romances sparked by blunt on-set matchmaking. Cast members forced to learn 2 versions of every script when one star stopped showing up. Welcome to the wild behind-the-scenes world of Sugarbaker and Associates. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about designing women. Fact 1. 50,000 letters saved the show from cancellation.
I was thinking that you seemed to have gotten the phrase separation of church and state, but the one thing I did forget was just how divisive and dishonest and distasteful someone like you can be.
Designing Women almost never made it past its first year on the air, and the story of how it survived is one of the most remarkable rescue missions in television history. When the show premiered on CBS in the fall of 1986, it actually earned respectable ratings in its Monday night time slot. But then the network made a decision that nearly killed the series before it had a chance to find its audience. CBS moved the show to Thursday nights, placing it directly opposite NBC's popular courtroom comedy Night Court. The result was a disaster. Ratings plummeted, and Designing Women crashed all the way down to number 65 in the Nielsen rankings. The network quickly put the show on hiatus, which in television terms is usually just a polite way of saying cancellation is right around the corner. But executive producer Harry Thomason was not ready to give up on his wife Linda Bloodworth Thomason's creation without a fight. He reached out to a grassroots organization called Viewers for Quality Television, a group dedicated to saving well-crafted shows from being axed by short-sighted network executives. The organization's members began a massive letter-writing campaign, encouraging fans to send their protests directly to CBS President Bud Grant, as well as to television critics and journalists across the country. The response was overwhelming. By some estimates, CBS received around 50,000 letters in support of Designing Women, making it one of the biggest viewer campaigns in television history at that time, even larger than the famous effort that had saved Cagney and Lacey a few years earlier. The cast even appeared on Entertainment Tonight to discuss the campaign and rally more support. The strategy worked. CBS not only renewed the series, but moved it back to Monday nights, where it eventually became a top 20 hit. Fact 2. Dixie Carter got to sing every time she disagreed.
Lord, my God, when I know someone.
One of the most famous aspects of Designing Women was the fiery political speeches delivered by Julia Sugarbaker, the elegant and outspoken owner of the design firm. These passionate monologues, which fans nicknamed the Terminator rants, tackled everything from feminism to patriotism to religious hypocrisy. Audiences loved watching Julia put ignorant or bigoted characters in their place with her razor-sharp words and commanding presence. But here is the strange part. The actress who delivered those liberal speeches was actually a registered Republican who did not always agree with what her character was saying. Dixie Carter described her political views as libertarian-leaning conservative, and she once jokingly called herself the only Republican in show business. Creator Linda Bloodworth Thomason was a staunch liberal and close friend of Bill Clinton, and she used Julia Sugarbaker as a mouthpiece for her own political views. This put Carter in an awkward position. She was a professional who wanted to do her job well, but she sometimes felt uncomfortable delivering speeches that went against her personal beliefs. So Carter and the producers came up with a creative solution that worked for everyone. They made a deal. For every Terminator monologue that Carter had to deliver on a topic she personally disagreed with, she would get to sing a song in a future episode. This arrangement actually worked out beautifully because Carter had years of professional vocal training and had always dreamed of being an opera singer as a child. Throughout the series, viewers got to enjoy Julia Sugarbaker's beautiful singing voice in various episodes, never knowing that each musical moment was essentially payment for Carter putting aside her own political opinions to deliver yet another barn-burning liberal speech. Fact 3. Delta Burke was fired after a cast vote.
What's sad is that I won't be playing Suzanne anymore because I loved Suzanne. And that's sad because I'll miss her. It's like she's died for me.
The departure of Delta Burke from Designing Women is one of the messiest and most public breakups in sitcom history, and it ended in a way that sounds almost unbelievable. By the 5th season, the relationship between Burke and the show's producers, Harry and Linda Bloodworth Thomason, had completely fallen apart. Burke had given interviews accusing the Thomasons of terrorizing and manipulating her on set. She claimed that Harry Thomason once locked her and her co-stars in a room and screamed at them, though no other cast member ever confirmed this story. The Thomasons fired back by blaming Burke's husband, Gerald McRaney, for filling her head with ideas that she was the star of the show and deserved special treatment. The public feud was making headlines in entertainment news, and the tension on set became unbearable. Things got so bad during season 5 that Burke started showing up late to work or not showing up at all. This created a nightmare for everyone else involved in the production. The cast and crew were forced to learn 2 different versions of every single script. One version included scenes with Suzanne Sugarbaker, and the other version had those scenes rewritten in case Burke did not appear. Imagine having to memorize twice as much dialogue every week just because one person might or might not show up. By the end of the season, producer Harry Thomason had apparently had enough. He asked the remaining cast members to vote on whether or not they wanted to continue working with Burke. The vote went against her. The following week, Thomason sent a letter to the chairman of Columbia Pictures requesting that Burke be released from her contract. Just like that, the show's breakout star was gone. Fact 4. The character Anthony was only supposed to appear. Once Meshack Taylor's character Anthony Bouvier became such an essential part of Designing Women that it is hard to imagine the show without him. But here is something most fans do not know. Anthony was never meant to be a regular character at all. He was originally written as a one-time guest role appearing in just the 6th episode of the first season. When Taylor came in to audition for this small part, he encountered an unusual situation. The script for the episode was not even finished yet. Without any lines to read, the producers Linda Bloodworth Thomason, Harry Thomason, and the head writer asked Taylor to improvise. They gave him the basic idea of the character and asked what he would do in certain situations. Taylor was in excellent form that day. He launched into an improvisation that went on for about 5 minutes, and he was so engaging and funny that the producers eventually had to stop him. They hired him right there on the spot. Taylor once recalled in an interview that after he did that first episode, he simply never left. The chemistry between Taylor and the 4 female leads was undeniable, and audiences responded to Anthony immediately. The writers quickly recognized that they had something special and began writing Anthony into more and more episodes. By the 3rd season, Taylor was promoted from recurring cast member to series regular. His hard work paid off in another significant way too. Taylor became the first cast member from Designing Women to receive an Emmy Award nomination, earning recognition for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series in 1989. Not bad for a character who was only supposed to show up once and disappear. Fact 5. Gerald McRaney beat out John Ritter for the role. The role of Dash Goff, the charming novelist who happened to be one of Suzanne Sugarbaker's many ex-husbands, ended up going to Gerald McRaney. But he was not the only famous actor being considered for the part. According to reports, McRaney actually edged out John Ritter, the beloved star of Three's Company, to win the role. The casting choice turned out to be significant in ways that went far beyond the show itself because it sparked one of the great Hollywood love stories. McRaney and Delta Burke first met at a publicist's lunch in 1987, and there was an immediate attraction between them. When McRaney was cast on Designing Women later that same year, their connection only grew stronger. The two found themselves in a scene together where their characters were supposed to kiss. From that moment on, they were basically inseparable. Burke later said that part of why she fell so deeply in love with McRaney was that he loved her for who she was rather than for her looks. Their romance moved quickly, and the couple was married in May of 1989 in an elaborate ceremony with around 400 guests in attendance. In a touching detail that shows how close the Designing Women cast was at that time, Dixie Carter served as Delta Burke's matron of honor at the wedding. Of course, the relationship between Burke and Carter would eventually sour during the behind-the-scenes conflicts that led to Burke's departure from the show, and the two women did not speak for over a decade afterward. But at that wedding in '89, they stood together as the closest of friends, celebrating Burke's new marriage to the man who beat out John Ritter. Fact 6. Delta Burke asked for the wait episode. One of the most talked about episodes in the entire run of Designing Women was They Shoot Fat Women, Don't They?, which aired in December of 1989. In the episode, Suzanne Sugarbaker attends her 15-year high school reunion and is devastated when former classmates make cruel remarks about her weight gain. The episode tackled the painful reality of how society treats women whose bodies change, and it resonated deeply with viewers across the country. What makes this episode even more interesting is the story behind its creation. By the late '80s, Delta Burke's weight had become tabloid fodder, with magazines and entertainment shows constantly commenting on how much heavier she looked compared to her beauty queen past. Burke struggled with this scrutiny, and according to reports, it was actually Burke herself who approached creator Linda Bloodworth Thomason about addressing the weight issue head-on in an episode. However, this became a point of contention later during the public feud between Burke and the Thomasons. Burke claimed the episode was entirely her idea, while Bloodworth Thomason said she had to spend hours convincing Burke that doing the episode would be a good idea. Whatever the truth about who first proposed it, the episode was a massive success. Burke's performance was raw and heartfelt, allowing her to channel the real pain she was experiencing into her character's story. The episode is widely believed to have earned Burke her first Primetime Emmy nomination for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. She would receive a second nomination the following year as well, making her the only female cast member in Designing Women history to be nominated for the award. Fact 7. Jean Smart's romance started with blunt matchmaking. Jean Smart's love story with fellow actor Richard Gilliland is the kind of tale that sounds like it belongs in a romantic comedy, complete with an awkward setup courtesy of a very blunt friend. Gilliland was cast in a recurring role on Designing Women during Season 1 as J.D. Shackelford, a baseball talent scout who served as the on-again, off-again boyfriend of Annie Potts' character, Mary Jo. But it was Jean Smart who noticed him first. Smart later recalled in an interview that she met him while he was kissing someone else, meaning she first saw him during a scene with Annie Potts' character. She was instantly smitten and wanted to find out if this handsome guest star was available. So Smart did what many of us might do in that situation. She asked a friend for help. She turned to her co-star, Delta Burke, and asked her to discreetly find out whether Gilliland was married. Now, if you know anything about Suzanne Sugarbaker as a character, you might guess that Delta Burke was not exactly the queen of subtlety. Burke walked right up to Gilliland and blurted out the question directly. "Jean wants to know if you're married," she announced. Fortunately for Smart, the answer was no. With that awkward icebreaker out of the way, Smart took matters into her own hands. She lured Gilliland into her dressing room by pretending she needed help with a crossword puzzle. Whatever happened in that dressing room, it worked. The couple got married in June of 1987 in the Rose Garden at the Brentwood home belonging to Dixie Carter and Hal Holbrook. Smart and Gilliland remained married for over 33 years until his death in 2021. Fact 8. Julia and Reese were actually married in real life. When Hal Holbrook appeared on Designing Women as Reese Watson, the distinguished Atlanta attorney who became Julia Sugarbaker's romantic partner, viewers had no idea they were watching a real married couple pretending to fall in love on screen. Holbrook and Dixie Carter had actually been married since 1984, making their on-screen chemistry completely genuine. But getting Holbrook to take the role was not easy. The legendary actor, best known for his iconic one-man show, Mark Twain Tonight, turned down the part multiple times when the producers first approached him. Holbrook was busy with his own career and apparently was not interested in taking a supporting role on his wife's sitcom. But producer Linda Bloodworth Thomason was persistent, and she finally found the perfect argument to change his mind. According to reports, she asked him a question he could not ignore. Do you really want some other man making love to your wife on television? That apparently did the trick. Holbrook took the role and appeared as Reese Watson from the first season through the fourth season, giving Julia Sugarbaker a stable and loving relationship that grounded her character. In a later interview with the Television Academy, Holbrook talked about how much he enjoyed working with his wife on the show. He said his instinct was to put Julia on and tease her a little bit, which seemed to work well for their characters' relationship. Sadly, Reese Watson was eventually killed off in season 5 so that Holbrook could take a role on another television show called Evening Shade. Carter and Holbrook remained happily married until her death from cancer in 2010. Holbrook passed away in 2021. Fact 9. Dixie Carter had plastic surgery between seasons. When Designing Women premiered in the fall of 1986, Dixie Carter was 47 years old, making her noticeably older than her co-stars. After watching the pilot episode for the first time, Carter had a realization that led her to make a significant personal decision. She later explained her thinking in interviews and in her 1996 memoir called Trying to Get to Heaven. Carter thought to herself that if this show turned out to be her first big success after so many years of working in the entertainment industry, she simply could not bear to be identified as the older one among the 4 leading ladies. So between the first and second seasons, Carter went under the knife. She was refreshingly honest about her plastic surgery in an era when most actresses kept such procedures secret. In her memoir and in interviews, Carter openly discussed having work done in stages, doing the bottom half of her face one year and the top half the next year. She acknowledged that we send a lot of mixed messages about beauty in our society, saying that while we claim all that matters is what is on the inside, we still put Michelle Pfeiffer on magazine covers rather than someone based purely on their inner qualities. Keen-eyed fans who watched the show might have noticed a slight difference in Julia Sugarbaker's appearance between the first and second seasons. Carter never tried to hide what she had done. She believed that grooming and presenting yourself well could lift every aspect of your life, and she simply was not willing to let age hold back her chance at stardom after waiting so long. Fact 10. The AIDS episode was inspired by a cruel hospital comment. The second season episode, Killing All the Right People, is widely considered one of the most important and groundbreaking episodes in sitcom history, but its origins come from a place of profound personal tragedy and heartbreak. In 1986, just as Linda Bloodworth Thomason was creating Designing Women and writing the early scripts, her mother, Claudia, was dying. Years earlier, Claudia had undergone open-heart surgery and received a blood transfusion. Unfortunately, this happened before blood banks routinely screened for HIV, and the transfusion was contaminated. By the time Bloodworth Thomason was launching her new show, her mother had developed AIDS. While keeping vigil at her mother's bedside in the hospital, Bloodworth Thomason witnessed firsthand the terrible prejudice and fear that AIDS patients experienced during that era. She watched as some nurses refused to even enter the rooms of AIDS patients, instead placing medication in buckets and kicking them through the doorway. It was during this painful time that Bloodworth Thomason overheard something that would become the title of one of television's most powerful episodes. A woman in the hospital corridor said to her companion that this disease had one thing going for it. It was killing all the right people. The creator channeled her grief and outrage into the episode, which features a young gay man dying of AIDS who asks the Sugarbaker women to design his funeral. The episode tackled the ignorance and bigotry surrounding the epidemic head-on and earned Emmy nominations for both writing and editing. Bloodworth Thomason dedicated the episode to her mother's memory. Fact 11. Dolly Parton begged to be on the show. When country music legend Dolly Parton appeared on Designing Women in a special one-hour episode that aired on New Year's Day, 1990, it was not because the producers went out seeking a big celebrity guest star. It was because Parton herself was such a massive fan of the show that she personally requested the opportunity to appear. The episode, titled The First Day of the Last Decade of the Entire 20th Century, centered around Charlene going into labor on New Year's Eve. Parton's appeared as herself, but playing a character she called Charlene's guardian movie star. In the dream sequence, Parton visits Charlene to reassure her about the baby, and reveals that family members who have passed on will be there in spirit to watch her child grow up. Later in the episode, Parton appears again as Charlene's baby is born, singing Somewhere Out There as an elderly patient in the hospital passes away at the very moment baby Olivia enters the world. The episode balanced humor and genuine emotion in a way that fans still remember decades later. It was nominated for several awards, including an Emmy. Creator Linda Bloodworth Thomason has said that this episode is the one fans mention to her more than any other. For Parton, the appearance was a chance to be part of a show she genuinely loved, and it introduced her to a whole new audience of fans who might not have followed country music, but absolutely adored watching the women of Sugarbaker and Associates every Monday night. Fact 12. The exterior. Atlanta House was actually in Arkansas. For 7 seasons, viewers of Designing Women saw the elegant Victorian mansion that served as the exterior of Sugarbaker and Associates Interior Design, the Atlanta-based firm where all the action took place. The house looked like the perfect representation of Southern charm and sophistication, exactly the kind of home where a classy businesswoman like Julia Sugarbaker would run her company. But here is the thing. That beautiful house was never actually in Atlanta, Georgia. It was located in Little Rock, Arkansas, more than 500 miles away from where the show was supposedly set. The house is called the Villa Mar, and it has quite a history of its own. It was built in 1881 by an Italian immigrant named Angelo Mar, who had made his fortune in the liquor and saloon business. The home features a distinctive flared mansard roof and a tower above the entry, making it a landmark of Little Rock ever since its construction. Over the decades, the house served as a nursing home, a rental property, a dance studio, and even an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting facility. By 1964, it had fallen into such disrepair that the city condemned it and was preparing to demolish it. A furniture company owner named James Strawn saved the house by purchasing it for just over $11,000 and spending 2 years restoring it to its former glory. He named it Villa Mar in honor of its original builders. The house was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1970. Show creators Harry and Linda Bloodworth Thomason, who were both originally from Arkansas, chose the house for its elegant appearance. Fact 13. Jean Smart was the only non-Southern lead.
You're a man.
Right.
Now be honest, if you like a woman, do you like her even more if she acts like she doesn't like you?
No.
Designing Women was a show built entirely around the concept of strong, intelligent Southern women navigating life, love, and business in Atlanta, Georgia. The 4 original female leads all played characters with deep Southern roots, and the show frequently drew humor and heart from exploring Southern culture and traditions. But here is an interesting piece of trivia about the cast. Of those 4 original actresses, only one was not actually born in the South. That would be Jean Smart, who played the sweet and sometimes naive office manager Charlene Frazier from the fictional small town of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Smart was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, about as far from the Deep South as you can get while staying in the continental United States. She grew up in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle, which was heavily populated by Scandinavian immigrants, not exactly the kind of place where you would pick up a Missouri drawl. Yet Smart managed to create such a convincing Southern accent and characterization that viewers never questioned whether Charlene was the real deal. Her co-stars all came from genuine Southern backgrounds. Dixie Carter was from McLemoresville, Tennessee. Delta Burke hailed from Orlando, Florida. Annie Potts grew up in Franklin, Kentucky. When creator Linda Bloodworth Thomason decided to make the show, she had all 4 actresses in mind from the very start based on previous work she had done with them. Apparently, she was confident enough in Smart's abilities that her Pacific Northwest origins were never seen as an obstacle to playing a woman from the Missouri Ozarks. Fact 14. The Desperate Housewives creator started as Dixie Carter's assistant.
The idea for Desperate Housewives came from a conversation I had with my mother at her home.
One of the most successful television series of the 2000s was Desperate Housewives, the soapy dramedy about the secrets and scandals of suburban women on Wisteria Lane. The show made creator Mark Cherry one of the most powerful names in television and launched the careers of several actresses to new heights. But before Cherry was running his own hit show, he was just a young guy trying to break into the entertainment industry. And his first real job in Hollywood was working as Dixie Carter's personal assistant on the set of Designing Women. Cherry had moved to Los Angeles hoping to become a writer, but the timing was terrible. The 1988 writers' strike hit just as he arrived in town, leaving him with no prospects. He took the assistant job to make ends meet and learn how the business worked from the inside. Cherry later recalled that working for Carter was quite an experience. Every morning, Carter would make an entrance from her bedroom to the office area where Cherry worked, flinging open the door and calling out his name before sweeping dramatically down the hallway. He could never tell if that was just how she walked naturally or if she was doing it for his benefit. Years later, when Desperate Housewives became a phenomenon, Cherry remembered his former boss and cast her in the role of Gloria Hodge, the disturbed and scheming mother of one of the main characters. Carter appeared on the show during its 3rd season in 2006 and 2007. The role earned her an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Comedy Series, which turned out to be the only Emmy nomination of her entire career. Fact 15. The series finale had no real ending.
What?
His card, it says, "Help, please call police. I've been swallowed by a fat guy."
After 7 seasons and 163 episodes, Designing Women came to an end on May 24, 1993. You might expect that a show which had run for so long and built such a devoted fan base would go out with a memorable finale that tied up loose ends and gave viewers a satisfying conclusion to the stories they had followed for years. But that is not what happened at all. The final episode, titled Gone with a Whim, was a 2-part story that had almost nothing to do with wrapping up the series. In the episode, the firm faces financial trouble after a corporate takeover threatens BJ's business empire, which in turn puts Sugarbakers at risk of bankruptcy. The characters are hired to redecorate a mansion that was designed to look like Tara from Gone with the Wind. From there, the episode turns into a series of fantasy sequences where each character imagines herself as Scarlett O'Hara. Julia, Mary Jo, Carlene, BJ, and even Bernice all get their turn playing the iconic Southern heroine in elaborate dream sequences. While the episode had some fun moments and even attempted to address the complicated racial history of romanticizing the antebellum South, it did not provide anything resembling a proper ending for the series. There was no final gathering of the characters, no reflection on their journey together, and no sense of closure for fans who had stuck with the show through all the cast changes and behind-the-scenes drama. The story simply stopped, with the implication that life would go on at Sugarbaker and Associates. For viewers who had invested years in these characters, it was a deeply unsatisfying way to say goodbye.